Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, back for another video here on Marvel Strike Force. Now, in today's video, we're going to be going over some of the news that happened late last night. We're also going to be doing a second parter of the Old Man Logan trials, because finally on MSF.gg, they have released the actual maps, the interactive maps that you can actually click on. So we're going to take a look at that for the trials, and you can see with the variety of different difficulties in terms of how powerful the enemies are going to be on the nodes. Now, as of recording this video, I haven't had have not had a chance to actually test the trials out. So I don't know if it's going to be a buggy mess on release. That's highly possible given what happened with Pocket Dimensions. But we'll take a look at this anyways and see what the expectation is as far as gear tier. Now, in the last video, I talked about all the best characters. I talked about the enemies on the nodes. But this will give you a good idea as to how high you're going to need to build certain characters. Now, obviously, actually testing it in the battle on Friday is going to probably tell you more in terms of what it is, but we can have a general idea as to how powerful these enemies are going to be. So, if you're ready to go, everybody, let's boil this down. So let's start things off with the Spotlight raids. This was released late last night. You can see Alpha Flight in the background because you're going to need them for this raid. And basically, the old Greek raids are going away. Beta and Gamma are going away. Alpha raid is still going to be around, but it's going to be like the introductory raid. So you're going to have, if you're a newer player, newer alliance, you're going to be starting with the Alpha raid, and then you're eventually going to move on into the Spotlight raids, which is going to have 3 different difficulties. And Spotlight raids and Greek raids, or Alpha, is going to have the same keys, the same energy. Presumably, they didn't specify on that one, but I'm assuming that's the case. So Spotlight Raid 1, the raid landscape is transforming to bring new challenges, as the name raid suggests, chance to put the spotlight. It's going to be for the newer characters. And my guess is that, like, down the line, they're going to rotate the teams that you're going to need for this. That's why Spotlight Raid 1, and then we're going to 2, 3, etc., etc. And so the first iteration is going to be including Spider Society and Alpha Flight. Spotlight Raid 1 launches with normal difficulty, D1 and D2 options to cater to varying levels of gameplay intensity, whether you're just getting your feet wet or ready for a challenge. So here's the map, and I want to blow this up in a different tab here. So you can see there's a boss at the very top. So there's different starting points. There's 3 starting points. You can see down here, non-mythic, and then another one here. So these are going to be one team of 6. So basically 2 per section. So 2, 2, and 2, and you're all gonna, I guess on the side ones, you're gonna meet in the middle where that node doesn't exist in the other lane. So it's like kind of 4 people can attack this node, and like this one doesn't have that. And if you zoom in, you're gonna see basically 2 non-mythic nodes to start, 3 Spider Society nodes, and then 4 Alpha Flight nodes, and then a final boss if you're on the sides. So what's interesting about this is that because you're running with lane mates, how hard are the nodes? Like, that's something, again, as of recording this, I have had no testing on the playtest server regarding the Spotlight raids yet, so I don't know about that. But, there's not a lot of nodes. If you consider that it's 2 people per section, right? So that's 2, 5, 10 nodes here, like, I guess including the final one. So my question is whether or not the nodes are hard enough that it's kind of designed for a 2-tap per node. Because typically you're able to get, I would say, about like 10 raid attacks per raid, both the Greek raids and incursion raid, things like that, in your 24-hour period, typically, if you start early enough. And so that, with 2 people going side by side, it would make sense then to me, I think, that it would be maybe hard enough that it would require 2 attacks. That's just my thoughts. That's my initial thoughts of what that's going to be. There's going to be, like I said, you're actually going to be able to get 50% through just the initial nodes with the non-mythic and the Spider Society before you get Alpha Flight. Now, most people should have already been leveling up Spider Society, so hopefully you're already there. But let's take a look at the requirements anyways. And so normal difficulty is green, green ISO 5. Difficulty 1 is blue ISO 1. Again, that should be pretty easy. And then difficulty 2 is going to be blue ISO 4. Honestly, if you're using Spider Society in your main raids, you should probably already have this anyways, so this shouldn't be that difficult to do. I think the requirements are fair. We don't really know though in terms of like how hard is D2. Is this like GAT95 kind of requirements? We don't really know that, and it doesn't really say that here. Your alliance will unlock difficulty 1 after reaching 50%, and difficulty 2 will be unlocked after reaching 50% in D1. So 50% is pretty easy to do. Like I said, you can actually manage this if everybody clears the non-mythic and Spider Society sections. I do believe it's like 52%. I think I calculated it somewhere earlier tonight. So as long as you're able to do all of that, then you can actually reach D2 without even touching Alpha Flight. So that's pretty good, as long as everyone's clearing everything else, of course. And then keep in mind, it is, again, a team of 6, not a team of 8. Spotlight Raid rewards, dive into these. We talked about this in a previous video when I data mined it, but it does say T4 ability materials, Armory 19 orb fragments, Crimson Raid Gear orb fragments, Spotlight orb fragments. Now, this is going to be interesting because this is where they're going to be adding some farmability of newer characters. Heaps of gold. Now, I'm going to keep... What does that mean, right? What does heaps of gold mean? Raid credits and more. Earn up to 1 billion season points for the raid season leaderboard. Now, something that I'm really... I'm skeptical about. Well, I think it says further down below, but basically they're removing T4 ability materials from the existing incursion raids and the raid season leaderboard. I believe it says it further down, and we'll talk about that more there, why I'm a little bit concerned. Again, we talked about this as removing the other Greek raids. Also, the orbs are going away, so make sure you open any of your alpha, beta, and gamma raid orbs. Those are going away in your raid tab. Make sure you do that, because then people are going to complain about that it's gone away and there was no warning, but there was a warning. So they talk about the changing of these raids to purple and green raids. I think it's silly, but it's just my thoughts anyways. Alpha and Spotlight raids are going to be purple. Your regular raids are going to be green. They're just classifying it, but I don't know. Do people need that? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Greek and Spotlight raids will utilize the new purple raid resources, and then regular raids are green raids. So the new Spotlight raid orb debuts with guarantees of 5 shards of Void Knight in each orb. So that was kind of alluding to what we saw about earlier on last week's blog that talked about Hive Mind farmability. So now we know one character of Hive Mind is going into the Spotlight raids. I guess that's what they wanted to talk about, and maybe we'll hear more about where the other 2 characters, Gwenum and Red Goblin, are going to go in terms of that. Hopefully that's regular farmability, and they're just changing up what they're going to do with Void Knight. It says they'll periodically update the contents of the Spotlight raid. I'm assuming every time there's a new iteration of a Spotlight raid, that'll get changed. They talk about how green raids are going to be primarily yielding gear, while purple raids are going to focus on ability material. Average alliances can expect a 60% boost in ability material from playing purple raids. And this part is really interesting because in the current raid climate, you're basically getting about 20 T4s a day. This is from your payout, typically from anywhere from Doom 2 raids onwards. And so over the course of 14 days in a season, this is about 280 T4s. That also doesn't include the occasional T4s that you'll get from clearing boss nodes. Pretty sure even in just like Incursion Raid 1, you'll get it on the boss nodes. I believe it's... Okay, in Incursion Raid 2, it's 3 per boss node. I guess in Incursion Raid 1, it's 2. Nonetheless, though, if you do some occasional boss nodes, you're going to get additional T4s. And then, of course, they're getting rid of it from the raid season. So depending on where you place in there, this is my boosted account just because of what I happen to be on. But anyways, you're going to get anywhere from whatever this is, right? 125, 140, 160, depending on where you're ranking. So that's every 2 weeks. So they're saying that we're going to get 60% more on that average alliance. Is my boosted account considered an average alliance? I don't know, but at least my main would be. And so that's quite the claim there that I hope they're able to back up. T4 ability materials will be adjusted. So basically they're saying that the raid season leaderboard is gone, and it's going to be gone from green raids, which is the incursion raids. So they better make that up. And we don't really know what that's going to be because we haven't seen that. So that's interesting, right? Expect gear orb fragments and gold orb fragments to be replaced by more versatile raid credits and gold. So, yeah, I say that word a lot too. In the current Greek raids, that's what we get. You get gold orb fragments currently. I believe you get like 1 per day typically. I know I'm at 4.1, but I think it's pretty much like 1 gold orb. I'm pretty sure, even at Gamma 4.5. And they're saying that basically it's going to be replaced with gear orb fragments with raid credits and flat gold. So we'll see what that ends up turning out to be. I find that interesting because obviously gold orbs have the chance to jackpot, whereas regular gold does not. So they'd have to keep that in mind as well. And whether or not we actually have a downgrade, that remains to be seen too. We don't really know what that's going to turn out to be. So that's the blog for the raise. Let me know what you think about that. But secondly, I want to talk about, for the last half of the video here, we're talking about the Old Man Logan trials. Like I said, the maps are out for this. We talked about the nodes, so I'm not going to go over all of the enemies and things like that. But one thing that I do want to go over is particularly the key difficulties, I suppose, D8, D10, and probably D12. So D8 is basically the 4-star unlock, is the bare minimum Old Man Logan unlock if you're trying to do that. So I just want to jump ahead to the last node just because I think that that's most important. Most of the enemies stay around the same kind of range in terms of power level. So you're seeing like a G18, a level 80 G15 kind of range. So you're seeing about 150 to 170k-ish kind of power range. But if you click on the characters, though, you can see their stats here on the side. So you can see Black Cat with actually about like less than 600,000 hit points, which is pretty low compared to their power level. So I think this actually shouldn't really be all that difficult to do. I'll zoom out a little bit because sometimes this is a bit wonky on the right-hand side there. And then if we scroll, because we know there's a Mephisto on there, right? We talked about that. Node number 10 with Mephisto. About 765k hit points over here on the right-hand side. So I think this is pretty reasonable. Like, I don't think this is going to be... I say that, like, obviously the enemies are super meta, and so that part of it's going to be really challenging. But as far as their stats go, like, comparatively to Pocket Dimension and stuff like that, it doesn't look super stacked. In fact, they actually have negative stat bonuses, like minus 20 health, minus 15% damage, and so on. And actually a 10% decrease in speed on some of the characters. That was on Mephisto, though. So, I mean, who knows, like, on a per-character basis. But it does look pretty reasonable. The difference is, like many people commented in my other video, though, is that the meta characters are quite real. Right, it's not even just node 10. It would also be, I believe, node number this one, the Cosmic Bio Hero skill. I forget which one. Anyways, there's like a Red Hulk. So if you're running the War buffs and the Cosmic Crucible buffs, it's gonna be pretty brutal, right? You know, dealing with Gamma and Masters of Evil on the same node. Like some of these nodes are pretty rough as far as the characters go. But I was just kind of looking at their base stats. Like their health is pretty low. I think like 600k. I think it's pretty low. Like my boosted account could probably do this kind of damage on enemies and like, you know, I'm 3 months into the game. So I don't think that it'll be a bare minimum unlock. I think that will be pretty easy. But I do want to kind of take a look at some of the other ones. I want to take a look at difficulty 10. This is going to be your free to play maximum. So this is going to be my main account because I don't have the 5 stars. And so these are the kind of power levels that we're going to be looking at for that. And this one's about G16, level 80 as well, but they're about 240k. So that same Black Cat's now up to about almost 800,000 health, which isn't actually a crazy amount. But I think there might be packs that raise hit points specifically, so that might go up a little bit. But the boost for the stats over here, you might not be able to see it, but anyways, it says health minus 20%. And then Mephisto over here, same sort of negative stat boost, and he's about 1.1 million here on the health stats. It's not that crazy if you consider, like, this is what my main account is going to be doing. I think I'm going to be punching down. Like, as far as how high, like, I have a G19 Black Knight and things like that. Like, I think I'm punching down content here in terms of D10, but I'm just gated because I don't have the 5 yellows. So let's take a look at D12, because if you do have 5 yellows on your Out of Time and Cabal, then you're going to be wanting to run that one. And what kind of power levels are you looking at here? Well, you're looking at level 100, 800k, G17, and that same black, it jumps dramatically. So actually, what did we say, like 1 million on D10, and now this D12 is like 3 million hit points on Black Cat. And Mephisto, where's Mephisto, just as a point of comparison, 4.4 million. This almost seems like almost a tripling of stats, so it really jumps dramatically. I want to take a look at D11, but D11 is also 5-star, and it looks like it jumps dramatically in terms of their stats. 1.7 million. Okay, so maybe between D11 and D12, there's a pretty large stat bump. And when you unlock, you have to run D11, by the way, to get a 5-star Old Man Logan. D12 is just going to be for additional points. So keep that in mind. I think the D11 looks pretty reasonable still. Doesn't look that bad. D12 seems to be quite a jump. So that's where the difficulty jump seems to really kick in, is D12. And then there's actually a 13, 14, and 15. So I believe 13 and 14 is 6-star. Out of Time and Cabal, and D15 I think is 7-star, just for shits and giggles. You want to take a look at this. So D15, what is that? They don't even have a border. Is that supposed to be G19? Black Cat has 6 million hit points, so it actually doesn't scale as dramatically. Maybe the damage stat probably does, I would imagine, but the health stat doesn't actually scale because we were looking at, what was that, 4 million ish, or that was Mephisto, right? So maybe what does Mephisto have actually? Mephisto's over here at 8.8 million, so that's double over what the D12 one was. So I think it does scale pretty rapidly from D12 onwards, and so that'll be interesting for the whales and krakens who are fighting it out at the top. Obviously, that's not going to be me though. So if you want to kind of take a look at your own difficulty and kind of fool around with this a little bit and take a look at the nodes, go to msf.gg, take a look at the map game and the map section, and you can find the Old Man Logan trials in here in the Age of Apocalypse section, which I realize is not Age of Apocalypse, but that's just where they put it. It's kind of fun, kind of interactive. You can kind of take a look at on your own time, but it's interesting, right? You know, so take an idea of like what you're going to be doing, what difficulty you think you're going to be running. Is that, you know, where your characters are at roughly? Do you think that you're going to be able to do it? If not, maybe you want to bump your characters up just a little bit. Anyways, that's going to be the end of this video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, both about the Spotlight raids coming up soon and the Old Man Logan trials, which is going to start tomorrow. If you haven't caught up with my other video on the best characters for Old Man Logan trials, make sure you check out that one as well. Otherwise, I guess I'll see you guys on Friday for the blog and for the start of the trials. So until next time, everybody stay safe and healthy. I'll see y'all later. Boilon, signing out.